Maman, franchement, je te le dis, c'est abusé. La meuf, elle vient une fois par an, faut la traiter comme une princesse, s'il te plaît. Va confiner autre part, là.
I just want to be happy. I want to learn everything.
I'll be stinking rich.
This will change relationships and dating forever. They won't ever be the same again.
Hello, thanks for your company today from scenes of life under lockdown in France and a heartbreaking look at the 1980s AIDS epidemic to worlds where science can match you with your one true love. Welcome to our show about the best TV series of the moment. I'm joined by our critic, Alison Sargent. Hello, Alison. Thanks for joining us. Now, our first show is a timely one. It's set during France's first coronavirus lockdown last year.
That's right. It comes exactly 1 year later with Paris and many other parts of France now back somewhat on lockdown. Six fois Confiné is from the French channel Canal+. It's a series of 6 short standalone episodes, each written and directed by somebody different. Some of the creators are actually quite young and had never directed a fiction before this. Their work is brought to life by high-profile French actors that include Vincent Cassel, Ludivine Sagnier, and Félix Moiti. Take a look.
Italien.
Si tu veux tout savoir, je suis contre la livraison à domicile.
Ça déconne, on dirait ma sœur. Là, je suis confiné avec ma sœur, au secours. Ah,
c'est ce qui me manque, moi, avec le confinement. Ce contact.
Merde.
On y va à fond, on fait la totale.
D'un coup, on respecte plus les gestes barrières, là.
Désolé.
Alors, bon rétablissement, enfin bon virus à vous.
Well, it certainly looks interesting. The question we have to ask, though, is it too soon to be watching a series about this subject? Is it bearable to watch?
I found that these shows were bearable to watch, Eve, mostly because they don't imitate at all the slowness or the monotony of a lockdown. Each one is just 20 minutes long. They tell a complete and compelling story. They do address themes that are amplified by the lockdown, but in really unexpected and quirky ways. In one show, we have an electro DJ who's having a midlife crisis. Another one shows a struggling couple that's making money through online gaming. Other ones show wealthy Parisians running off to their parents' homes in the countryside. Now, that was the jumping off point for one director, Alice Moitié, but she actually ended up telling a very different story about sexual assault. Her main character, played by Ludivine Sagnier, learns quite casually that she was sexually abused as a child. It's a very heavy topic, but also one that's quite timely here in France.
Well, the director, Alice Moitié, told us the inspiration behind the episode. She spoke to France 24's Nina Masson and Mandy Heshmati. Take a listen.
I saw the exodus of people returning towards their childhood homes, as if it were a solution to a problem. I like that out of that chaos, there's a family secret that gets revealed. It's not an easy topic for a comedy, but I was interested in making it a comedy.
Now, the tone of this episode does make it pretty troubling to watch, but it's also quite thought-provoking as you watch this character trying to conjure up feelings about this traumatic event that doesn't appear to have traumatized her. Now, generally speaking, there is a lot of dark humor in this collection. I enjoyed some of the more absurd episodes. One of my favorites is about a group of men who lure people to a primary school to steal their gold teeth. All in all, this series is definitely the most interesting and unexpected lockdown-inspired fictions I've seen so far.
OK, well, that's Confiné. The next show is about a very different epidemic. Channel 4's It's a Sin follows a group of friends living in London during the 1980s AIDS crisis. Tell us more.
This is an incredibly powerful show, Eve. I really loved it. It aired in the UK at the end of January to rave reviews. It came out in the US on HBO Max in February. It's just come out here in France. It was created by Russell T Davies, who made the show Queer as Folk back in 1999. Now, that was Britain's first gay drama, and it didn't even mention AIDS or HIV because Davies said he really didn't want their lives to be defined by disease. But he's also said that he feels that, like a lot of people, he really looked away from the AIDS epidemic as it was happening. In It's a Sin, though, he finally meets it head on. Take a look.
Morning.
Have you seen this?
He said, she said, they said. They're always saying something.
They think it's this virus, AIDS. There are boys dying all over the world from sex.
Don't be ridiculous. That would be all over the news.
The government knows all about it and they're keeping it quiet.
Do you think there's an illness that only kills gay men? The whole thing is a pack of lies.
Now, It's a Sin is named after that 1980s song that you hear in the trailer, and Eve, I have to say, this show has an amazing soundtrack.
Part of what gives it its power as well is that it's semi-autobiographical.
Yeah, Davies says that every line can be traced back to someone who said it to him, most of whom are now dead. The main female character, Jill, is inspired by Davies' close friend, Jill, who was on the front lines of the AIDS epidemic in London. At the time, she lived with roommates in a flat that they called the Pink Palace, just as they do in the show. All of the lead male actors in the series are also played by gay men, something Davies said was really important to him. The group is charming, they have wonderful chemistry, and as you watch them meet and get attached to each other, you get attached to them, you laugh with them, and that's what makes it so hard when you end up losing some of them.
I can tell you really love this one. The show manages to bring together two very different emotions. It's both joyful, but also devastatingly sad.
It is, because just as these young men have finally found freedom and acceptance in sex, along comes this disease that feels like it's targeting only them. The show does a really good job showing the initial disbelief and denial, followed by the fear, the lack of information, the lack of attention from the government. Through it all, also the stigma and the shame that ultimately is why so many people died and often died alone. Amidst it all, though, there is so much love and so much joy. There's a moment when one of the main characters says that he doesn't want the virus to make people forget that they had so much fun, and this show does not let you forget that.
Okay, thank you. That's It's a Sin. Next, we're going to talk about two shows that explore what would happen in a world where soulmates really existed. We do definitely sound like a cynical news channel. Maybe they do exist, and could be found using a scientific test. I binge-watched the first one. Tell us more.
Yeah, I binge-watched both of these shows. The latest one came out on Netflix earlier this month. It's called The One and is based on a novel by John Mars. The One is also the name in this show of the company that promises to match you to your soulmate using a sample of your DNA. It's a very similar premise to the show Soulmates, which came out on Amazon Prime at the end of last year. In that show, the famous soulmate matching test is called Soul Connects. Both shows predict the technology leading to mass divorces as it completely upends the way we think about relationships.
I thought taking the test was going to be the answer. I thought it would make me happy.
We're going to start the machine now.
Are you ready to meet your soulmate?
If you want to stop at any time, just raise your right hand.
Stop!
Other people, they get to be happy, but I don't.
You knew I should never have trusted you. This is on you.
We all make our choices.
Maybe none of us really know what's most important till we have to choose.
Would you take the test, Alison?
I would not take the test.
Well, in a way, these shows explore the classic nature versus nurture debate, but applied to romantic love.
Yeah, because this technology, the very existence of it, forces the characters to think about which matters to them more, a relationship that they've built around commitment and shared experiences, or the enticing possibility of this magical primal connection. I found it sometimes torturous to watch. Ultimately, we see how this idea of certainty that's embodied by the concept of a soulmate creates doubts that end up eating away at even the most solid relationships. Of the two series, I think Soulmates gets more out of the theme and is overall a better show. Each episode follows a new set of characters, which allows it to explore more scenarios, like what happens when your soulmate is dead, or what happens when they're a serial killer. The One, meanwhile, centers around a murder plot that I found much less interesting than the themes raised by the show's premise. Now, another dating app-inspired sci-fi show, if you're into that kind of thing, is the Korean romance drama Love Alarm. It just came out with its second season. In that show, there's an app that tells you when someone who's nearby likes you. It's a much fluffier show about a teen love triangle, but it does try to mix in the occasional social commentary.
Okay, well, you could say this last show we're going to talk about is A Match Made in Heaven. It sees former US First Lady Michelle Obama star alongside two puppets named Waffles and Mochi.
They are both adorable, Waffles and Mochi. This culinary kids show is the latest from the partnership between Netflix and the Obama's production company, Higher Ground. Waffles and Mochi are two puppets who come from the land of frozen food, but they dream of becoming chefs. They work at a grocery store with a beautiful rooftop garden that's run by Michelle Obama, and they go on missions around the world to learn about different foods like potatoes, pickles, even water. Michelle Obama is the headliner, but the show also brings in tons of guest stars like the chef Samin Nosrat of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. The idea is to get kids to think more about what's on their plates, and the show's co-creators, one of them said she really hopes to do for food what Sesame Street did for learning. I have to say, this show is a treat for all of us.
It sounds like one. Alison, thank you so much. That wraps it up for this week's show. Let's end with a taste of Netflix, Waffles and Mochi. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
We've got to have courage, Mochi, or we'll never really learn how to cook.
Oh, that's perfect! Oh, the eggs!
That is slimier than a slug in a sauna.
It's like an explosion of colorful flavors.
It's spicy.
Yeah, it is.
What strange things?
We've seen stranger things than that.
Oh, Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Than the mushroom.
This, Mochi and Waffles, is your new home.